blueprints of becoming is actually a roadmap to change. It's basically about a journey. It's about transformation. It's about bringing the joy of celebrating a journey. How do you do it? I'm trying to share my personal experiences so that you will probably get a clue how I made it. I too had a dream when I was very young. This dream was before me because of certain reasons. I was born and brought up in Africa. My father was actually working for British government there in Africa. The Africanization was happening, and I had to come back to India. I had two problems at that time. I didn't know the local language. I knew only how to speak and read Swahili, which is an African local language, tribal language. When I came to Kerala, and when I actually started studying in a Malayalam medium school in Kerala, I didn't know how to write, how to read Malayalam. And I had a health issue too. I couldn't speak well because I had bad stammering. That actually led me to huge isolations. How I learned the language is something that I wish you hear about. A tuition master used to come to my house, my rural home, and used to take my finger and ask me to write the letters on the Mother Earth. That was when I touched the Mother Earth. When I touched it, a magic happened. The letters actually went through my blood to my heart, and I mastered the language in a few weeks' time. I started reading. I couldn't communicate with my friends. I told you, I began my young life as an isolated child. I didn't have many friends. I couldn't speak also because I had bad stammering. I couldn't put my ideas forth. That led me into the whole world of reading. And that reading, unfortunately, culminated in some huge questions before me. At the age of 11, at the age of 12, I was thinking about the meaninglessness of life. I became obsessed with certain existential questions. And actually that led me into a very dark corner. In fact, as a very good student at that time, I stopped studying for a few weeks. My mother found it out and led me back to the school. I was thinking about the whole question of why should I study? I'm not going to leave a trail in my life. That again led me to another magical vista. When I was in the school in the 7th standard, as a 7th standard student, I got attached to a popular science movement. It's actually, presently, it's one of the largest popular science movement in the world. An organization called Kerala Shastra Sahitya Parishad. That actually gave me amazing vistas into getting to know the social equities, the political equity of a country called India, where I could come face to face with the social realities. We're trying to promote science and technology to the common benefit. As a 7th class student, I used to take these smokeless chulas. I went to the streets to sell these smokeless chulas, which actually it was a paradigm change in, because all these kitchens those days were emitting toxic gases, and we are talking for the first time about a fuel-efficient cooking system. I used to carry this big oven on my head and take it to the street, sell it to a common person who would probably have fuel-efficient, cost-efficient, resource-efficient cooking system. That was my first phase with science and technology. Later I got involved with a literacy movement, because we want to empower people. The most downtrodden, dispossessed, deprived society is actually, they're the tribals who are living up in the mountain and the traditional fishermen. Had huge opportunity to get into the traditional fishermen sector. Those days, women, they go to the streets to sell fish. The men will go to the sea to catch fish. That was the thing. Steeped in poverty. If the sea goes rough, they wouldn't have anything to eat the next day. So that was where I saw poverty at such close quarters. Me being brought up in a probably upper middle class family, I didn't know what poverty really meant. When I took their hands in the evenings, I used to stay with them in the evenings. After the school hours, I used to go to them to teach them how to read and write. We thought, even as students, school students, we thought literacy would probably empower them. It will actually make them aware of their rights. And that will empower the community to have more and more dreams, to look at vocational opportunities, to look at different livelihood opportunities. That actually led me to Magical Vistas. That was when I looked at the physical condition of the house, when I looked at the cooking spaces that they have, when I looked at the lack of sanitary facilities that they have, then I thought, they also have a face. They also have dreams like us. There are many in the country who don't have such facilities, not even a clean cooking space and a clean toilet. That actually led me into architecture, because through architecture, I thought I could reach out to them. I could hold hands with them. Then I went to England to do my master's. I always believe, my dear friends, that highest technical qualifications, let me reiterate that word again, highest technical qualifications blended with social aspirations, they make the best of men and women. I still do believe that. So after getting my master's from England, because I always used to do first, I wanted to be the best in the class, I want to be the best in my career, and that is where I took a deviant route. As I was completing my course in Birmingham, a professor from the university, Newcastle on Tyne, came to me and actually, gave me immense freedom, immense money to start a course at the age of 23, mind you. At the age of 23, I was given such a lot of livelihood opportunities by looking at money, by looking at opportunities to work in international sector, international education sector. For a moment, I was really confused. Me coming from a rural background in Kerala, having educated in England, looking at this magical opportunity that came to me at the age of 23. But I looked back. I want a week to answer that question. I looked back, then I realized that India, I still believe that India is land of opportunities. I told that probably 4 decades back, that India is a land of opportunity. As an architect, I could come back to India, and where else in the world there's such a legacy of knowledge? Where else in the world where I can have such a tool, such a vocabulary of beautiful building materials, beautiful landscapes, beautiful mindscapes, where I could express my architectural this thing in a much better way, much meaningful way. I told him, sir, after a week when he told him that I'm not going to take up this opportunity, and that's how I came back to India. When I came back to India, I thought that the only way to do meaningful architecture was to hold hands with the dispossessed, deprived, and marginalized sections of society. That is where I base my work in, and that is where I start my domain. I too had a dream. I too had a dream where every Indian who are born in this country should have a clean cooking space and a clean toilet. We are very creative. Indians are very creative. We are very resourceful. With whatever materials that you get around the material, we could actually have a safe shelter. Safety became a big issue. Resilient architecture became an issue. That's why I turned to voluntary sector. The organization which I represent, Habitat Technology Group, I started from one room and one person. I just had a dream. My limited dream was to hold hands with limited people. That should be your dream too. If you can be a beacon of hope, beacon of this thing to somebody, if you can leave a trail of happiness to somebody's lives, if you can, through architecture, I thought I could build some houses for them. I could give them some shelter and safety to them. They also have dreams. I want to reach out to them. That's when I started a non-profit, not-for-profit initiative called Habitat Technology Group for a small room. As I was telling my friend, there's always a big infinity between 1 and 0. I've traveled that distance. I literally shed my blood. I've been physically assaulted for sticking to my convictions. These things about, I've been talking bad against all those unsustainable technologies and materials that are being touted for house constructions. We don't have to look at the West. We have our own answers. Where else in the world do you have such a beautiful vocabulary of materials, capabilities, and resources? That is when I started talking about sustainable architecture, cost-efficient architecture, resilient architecture, resource-efficient architecture, people-friendly architecture, value-based architecture, architecture based on truthfulness and honesty and things like that. People were wondering whether they'll be takers. I mean, in my own this thing, let me tell you with all humility, this habitat technology has, over the last 30 years, has grown to be one of the largest non-profit initiatives in sustainable architecture, not in this part of the world, but looking at the international sector, I'm sure that this is the largest organization in Asia, probably the largest organization in India, in the world, in the sustainable architecture shelter sector in India. The work that we have done, I told you about the distance between 1 and 0. I don't think anybody else has done more buildings than me in the world, talking about sustainable building. Tremendous work. But all these tremendous works have been directed with some certain incidents that happened to me. I started my career, my interventions in architecture in disaster management area by looking at Bhopal. When Bhopal gas tragedy happened, that actually gave me a lot of confidence. A completely different social, political, cultural scenario where we started working with people. That is where you find traumatized people who have gone through agony, people who have gone through pain, people who have lost everything. And there you go to rebuild, resettle, bring some happiness back to them. That also gave me a direction to my career. After Bhopal, lots of things happened, my dear friends. In Madhya Pradesh, one of the largest resettlement colonies in the present contemporary world. You may not have heard of it. When Narmada resettlement happened, it became international scam. When Tehri Dam rehabilitation, it became international scam. The project of rehabilitating 15,000 families, tribal families from the hinterland in very sensitive areas of Madhya Pradesh is something that actually defined my way forward. I started designing it. Some corporate bigwig called me in the night and asked me to. They said everybody else had failed. Tatas had failed, JPs had failed, all those big peoples have failed. Can you help us? And I said, why me? They said, you are one person who works with people. That's a very sensitive area, politically very sensitive area. And me from Kerala going to Hindi mainland and doing something for them. The lady said, Shankar, you are the person to take up this project. You are the only person in India who could take up this. I took it up with such this thing because I always worked with the marginalized and deprived people. I went to this place, Singrauli, talking about this thing. And first time, as an architect, there are many things that actually you keep it in mind when you design things for the people. I went to the district collector said, I cannot take you there because there's law and order situation, people are agitated, tribals are agitated, they're up in arms, and your life is in danger. I said, no. If I want to be with the people, if I want to build houses for them, I should see them face to face. I should know how they live. I should meet the context, cultural context, where I could meet them. I went to them. A tribal driver, used to take me to that hinterland. I want to see where they were sleeping, where they were living. The first thing was a cultural shock to me. When I went to this Hindi mainland, one of the tribal houses, I saw a fully grown goat, Bakri, and a man, tribal man, sleeping together, snoring away to glory. A man and an animal sleeping together in a charpai, snoring away to glory was a cultural shock to me. And room for the animal, not acceptable for a city-bred architect like me. But he showed me, driver showed me the next room, where a cow and a calf were sleeping peacefully. Then I knew the cultural scenario of that particular thing, more than their house. They wanted safe, secure, a room with ventilation, a room with a view, even for the animals. I took it to my heart. And when I started building in that land, for rehabilitation, I took that in my mind. I want to talk to people before I could tell them, who are we? We are not, we don't have the mandate to impose our will on people. So I want to hold their hands. I want to do a very meaningful exercise. Finally, my dear friends, the discussions came, and the people who were holding, gun-trotting people who were holding the discussion, they were leading the Gram Panchayat. They came up and asked me, I can speak Hindi very well, but they asked me in coarse voice. I was trying to tell them. I took a big model. Nahane ka jagah hai, soने ka jagah hai. This is a place to sleep. This is a place to take bath. And then they said, हमारे जानवरों के लिए जगह कहाँ है? I said, with such happiness, I said, यहाँ है. I turned the model there, and there's a room with a model of a cow and a calf staying there. My dear friends, I went down to build 15,000 houses for them without a whimper, without a protest. I even gave them harvesting ground, threshing ground. This is what Habitat is all about. It's not about building four walls. You have to be very sensitive. You have to be culturally sensitive. It has to be eco-sensitive. You have to address the questions of energy efficiency. You have to address the question of resource efficiency. You have to stick to their cultural needs. And that is how I started looking at that. So that actually gave me a huge impetus. And finally, when I was leaving these premises, they said, they actually held me till the evening. And as I was going back, I was asked to go look back at the mountain, 15,000 houses. And each house had a diya in respect. That's the only thing that probably they could give me. I still consider that as a more precious than the Padma Shri award that I got, my dear friends. The kind of connectivity that you have. How do you connect architecture to the landscape and mindscape of India? India needs such interventions. Looking at eco-sensitivity, looking at energy efficiency, looking at value-based thing, looking at people-centered strategies. And how do you address that? Cost efficiency, resilient architecture. India, the whole actually time, when you look at the landscape, one into other, we are in vulnerable zones. So we have to be, as architects, let me also state a very brutal statement. We are primarily responsible for climate change by adopting unsustainable technologies and material, and it's time to react to that. Otherwise, we will lose our homeland. My dear friends, if I could make it, I just had a dream. My limited dream was to make my mother happy in the initial stages. Then I want to make the nation happy. My own small interventions, I'm making at least a small section of society by my work, by the organization work. I am trying to bring smiles to their life by using these adaptive, resilient strategies. Look at waste management, rainwater harvesting, the solar lighting. I'm looking at local. Local is the mantra for me. Local materials, local technologies, and local capabilities. Through that, can you bring life? Can you bring smile to the generation? Is the question that I always had. Thank you. Thank you very much for your kind listening.